Mary Ugolini here with Rebel News to provide an update on the unfolding situation in Cobourg, Ontario, where residents and businesses, especially those in the downtown core, have been grappling with extreme increases to violence, crime, and public safety threats due to vagrancy, open-air drug use, and burgeoning encampment situations.
After you did your little report up here, did you take photos of that house?
I've lived in Cobourg for over 50 years. I've raised my family here. I felt safe, but now I don't.
Had a drug house 2 doors down from us, so it was constant.
It's such a shame to have that building in place and not have people be able to use it.
Yeah, we have harm reduction stuff. Anything that you need, we can try to find. We can help you to sort things out.
Hey, we're coming in with the media to say that this is a bad place because of drug addicts is a hate crime.
It's easier just to kind of go on your own.
Because we need to reintegrate these people into society.
Because it's not morally wrong to be a drug user. There's a lot of nuances to that.
Following the investigation into Cobourg's crime crisis that we did in January, I now report on the continued allocation of shelter services through the upper tier municipality known as Northumberland County and their acquisition of the former nursing home at 310 Division Street to the tune of $2.3 million as a low-barrier shelter, and now additional funds have been granted by the province at $2.5 million to facilitate the extensive renovations needed. This is after the province nearly doubled homelessness funding to the county in May of last year. This location is a block away from an elementary school, is on the main street leading into Cobourg's downtown core, and is situated in the middle of a residential neighborhood. Transition House is a registered charity and has received a sole-sourced contract for this location despite concerns about poor management in recent years, something that dates back to 2017 when a staff member was attacked and the interior of the property suffered significant damage due to this inside incident. After 10 months of closure at that time, the shelter then reopened as a low barrier designation, and it's been crime and chaos for the neighboring community ever since. Transition House has seen a high staff and board member turnover rate in the years that have followed, which leads us to today, where new executive director Ike Nwiebe has taken the reins. As a former senior manager from Fred Victor, a Toronto-based charity that seeks to end homelessness, who receives 3/4 of its nearly $50 million revenue through government grants. A similar number happens at Transition House, whose revenue comes almost entirely from government and county funds. While the situation is affecting Cobourg residents and impacting emergency services, straining police operations, it's the upper tier municipality, Northumberland County, that is the designated service manager of homelessness and shelter space. In a slideshow presentation on March 6th, given by the Associate Director for Housing and Homelessness, Rebecca Carmen, who ironically made $105,000 in 2022, it's clearly outlined how the county subverted democratic due process and actually hindered community engagement on this file. That timeline gave residents a mere 2 days to not only become aware of these plans, but to gather their thoughts and provide feedback. Northumberland County announced an intent to purchase this property on social media on December the 5th, a day before the agreement was signed and 3 days before it was finalized. During this process, in what should be a clear conflict of interest, St. Andrew's Church Reverend Neil Ellis was the chair for the board of directors at Transition House and previously served as acting executive director, but has since transitioned into a new role as Northumberland County's housing and services manager as of February 2024. Due to increasing safety concerns, backdoor deals, and lack of communication, the town of Cobourg has since introduced a new emergency care establishment licensing bylaw. The new bylaw is set to take effect on March the 28th that would see stipulations placed on shelter spaces, including scheduled maintenance of litter, waste, and debris within a 500-meter radius, code of conduct for shelter occupants that aligns with the town's nuisance bylaw, 24/7 contact information, security on site and within a 500-meter radius, and holding shelter directors/officers personally liable for adherence to the bylaw by occupants both on and off-site. Fines would range from $500 to $100,000 per day or half day, something that Carmen says would impact all shelter services in Cobourg, despite the bylaw containing exemption clauses for well-delivered shelter services.
Recognizing that there is now an uncertain future of operations regarding their ability for shelter services to continue operating after March 28th. There could be a potential inability to keep or attract board members because of the personal liability. It is infeasible to consider monitoring behavior and actions of shelter clients once they leave the premises. It is cost prohibitive in its implementation, namely security, garbage, and the monitoring of behavior. It also requires a proof of insurance that includes a $2 million liability limit per occurrence for property damage and bodily injury, and identifies the town being added as additional insured. And these insurance requirements have been specifically held to be unrelated to purposes of health, safety, and nuisance prevention.
Cobourg Mayor Lucas Cleveland called this presentation and these interpretations fear-mongering, which sparked some controversy at the meeting.
The exemptions were applied so that the staff could use those exemptions when necessary. Again, why is this level of government issuing reports and statements that cause fear and commotion in our community without doing their due diligence of research and investigation?
I don't think we should get into a finger-pointing game of who's causing fear or who's not causing fear. At the end of the day, I think both levels can be accused of the same.
And I'm going to politely decline that, sir. This level of the Cobourg, I've got all of the documentations of emails from the last month and a half of Cobourg reaching out to this level of government, asking for feedback, asking to come to the table to work cooperatively together to mitigate this problem, to move forward, because we are all aware that these are needed services in our community. We're all aware that this is needed. Ms. Carmen did an exceptional job today outlining, first of all, the successes of staff to date, as well as the clear and present need. So I'm asking, again, why is it that this level of government is not providing the appropriate, like I've got the email saying that this exemption is there. So why are we looking at reports saying that, you know, we should worry about the operations of Cornerstone, when clearly anyone can read that there's an opportunity for Cornerstone to be exempt from this bylaw and continue on with its services.
So one assumes there's an opportunity for 310 to be exempt from the bylaw as well.
There could be that opportunity, yes, if so decided by staff. Again, that would be dependent upon the staff's discretion, the professionals at the table, and not a political person.
And yet here we are.
Ike Nwiebe delegated that he wants to see Northumberland County as a housing-first leader and expressed concerns about liability under Cobourg's new bylaw.
Our move to 310 Division Street aims to enhance service quality, promote dignity among service users, and foster collaboration with community agencies. This endeavor aligns with our vision of establishing Cobourg and Northumberland and the entire Northumberland County as exemplars of housing first principles.
Mayor Cleveland asks Nwiebe to explain how exactly the bylaw prevents Transition House from operating, and Nwiebe focused on the personal liability of staff and board members in his response.
Given the way the bylaw is written, principal officers, the board members, and all will be held accountable in their person for some of these behaviors or some of these activities by members of the, by the community that we serve. So that is one of those conditions. So I would have loved to go through some of the other conditions, but that simply just sums it. So an organization without the able board, where the board members are concerned in their own, what their volunteers who are giving their time and and service to an organization that supports the vulnerable members of the community, that fear is already a push factor for them, and then automatically that renders us incapacitated, or there's a potential of that happening.
Thank you both. Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Cleveland?
I guess I'm confused because that responsibility of a board is the exact same responsibility that every member of this council has accepted, that every board member and every other board, that when you're on a police service board, that's an accepted responsibility. So I guess I'm just a little concerned how this would prevent it. So
he further opposes the county moving into a closed meeting session after all of this discussion. Nonetheless, the motion carried and backdoor discussions ensued. Interestingly, earlier that day, concerned resident and local business owner James Bisson, who I previously interviewed, delegated to the county on the rise in crime and how that has put local law-abiding and tax-paying citizens under siege.
Your services in that downtown area are having a detrimental impact to the very social fabric of our community. Added to that, less than 1.2 kilometers away is the encampment. Now, if the purpose of buying 310 Division is to be able to deal with the encampment situation, which will be dismantled at some point in time, I think that you're sadly mistaken that that'll work. They've publicly stated that they have no interest in going into this building, that they want to continue a no-barrier encampment, and they are determined and emboldened to continue to do so. The two factors of that encampment, and let's not forget that encampment didn't exist prior to August 1st of 2023. The reason it came about is because, as you can see, one of the initiatives that the town of Cobourg did was to start to shut down drug houses in residential areas. I live in that area indicated by Battelle. For over a decade, we were living in a siege of crime and infractions because of that drug house. Over the last 4 months, we have had one incident since they shut that down. So between the anvil of the encampment and the hammer of your decisions to concentrate homelessness sheltering capacities in a 2-block radius in downtown Cobourg, we are under siege. The decisions that you are making at this council have a direct impact on the quality of life of the people of Cobourg. We are living in a situation of crime. What you're seeing here is the heat map that I did in regards to searches for the items listed below. In the space of 90 days, we had 348 recorded incidences in the town of Cobourg, an average of 4 a day. When we take a look at the details of that, we have an assault or a weapons incident once every 3 days in Cobourg. This is unsustainable and unacceptable that the resources of our local community are being used to address the concerns and the fallout from this. When we take a look at a breakdown of those incidences, that 2 kilometer by 1 kilometer radius in the downtown core makes up 63% of the incidences that are recorded. That is not taking into account the unrecorded incidences of crime and trespassing and vagrancy and theft and assaults in our community. This county has utterly failed the residents of Cobourg on multiple fronts throughout this entire process in the last year.
Bisson also highlights an interesting angle to the housing first model that Nwibe wanted Northumberland to be a leader in.
The full review of sheltering services that was conducted and deposited to the county on in May of 2023. And in that report, there was a number of recommendations, 44 to be exact, and a variety of different items that came up. And one of the items on page 15 of that report indicates that Cornerstone in 2022 refused 96 women and 29 children access to their facility because they didn't have the space. That is 125 women and children that were denied access, that were seeking sanctuary from abusive situations. There is no indication of what happened to these women and children, where they went, what was involved in regards to acquiring shelter for these people. And Cornerstone has not been considered at all in regards to its use of 310 Division. There's only 20 spaces at Cornerstone, and they are refusing access to people in desperate need, women and children. And why they are not considered as a partner in 310 is beyond me. Having said that, if this is the kind of society that we're going to have, where we're dropping millions of dollars into a facility without taking into consideration some of the most desperate people in our community, it doesn't speak much in regards to the strategy the county is having.
Cornerstone Family Violence Prevention Center is located a few blocks south of Transition House and offers emergency shelter for women and children fleeing violent situations, including support and prevention programming. As highlighted by Bisson from the county's homelessness report, they turned away 96 eligible at-risk women and their vulnerable children in 2022 due to lack of capacity. It's noted in the report that they typically operate at an 88% occupancy rate, whereas Transition House operates at 63% occupancy rate. And now that an additional nearly $2.5 million of provincial funds has been granted to the county to, I guess, modernize and update 310 Division, will the priority still be to provide this massive housing opportunity to a charitable organization with questionable capabilities that operates at a lower capacity than others, while the women's shelter down the street turns away truly vulnerable, innocent children and their abused mothers? It appears that the county is moving forward with Transition House acquiring 310 Division, as the CAO explains in a meeting on March 14th that the additional funding will be used for things like developing a smoking area and locker room style drop-in showering space.
It allows us to have, a drop-in center that also has a kind of like a locker room, shower room that people can also come in and seek those services off the street. So it does allow us to have to create that environment that was something we would have worked towards over several years. We hope that this is what we'll need to move us through.
Deputy Warden and Cramahe Township Mayor Mandy Martin pats the county on the back and refers to this additional funding as Santa Claus coming to town.
It's at their discretion. It's Santa Claus coming to town across this province. That said, I think that this gift to us, as I call it, is recognition of all the work that has gone on, not just within the last year, but for the last years, addressing this situation and addressing how we serve the community.
Councillor Logal furthers the Santa Claus analogy in case you're wondering how fiscal responsibility is approached at the county level, despite the funding coming from the backs of law-abiding, hard-working taxpayers.
Santa Claus has delivered all the gifts that he has, and he's still got a few left in his bag. And so basically, what I'm saying is that money has already been approved by the province that they will spend so much money. There's still some left at the end of the year, and they're saying, we want to make sure we use all our money that we can, and this is a project that they feel is good, and that's why we got it.
The county moved to continue backdoor discussions around their own top-secret bylaw in response to Cobourg's, with a plan to produce a full report at their next meeting scheduled on March the 20th. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. These issues are plaguing towns and cities all across the country. If you would like to stay up to date on our reporting and support it, please do so at fixourcities.com. That's fixourcities.com.